Hello, this is going to be a pretty quick tutorial on some Unity tips and tricks um, that I've found over my years using it that I think would be really helpful. This isn't going to cover everything. I'm sure there are more that I don't know about, but this should be a good place to start. So a lot of these you probably already know, but the first one is this maximize on play button. This allows you to get a full view. So this is only a partial view. It is technically a full view, but it's not taking up your entire screen, and you might want to see the game in a full screen view. So that's what Maximize on Play does. It just turns it into a full screen view. If you want to go back to a partial screen view, you don't have to stop it and then start it again. You can just uncheck this Maximize on Play. You can pause and unpause. And there you go. Now you're back to your partial view or a smaller view without having to stop the game. Okay, so some other things. I'm just going to switch out of 2D view real quick. If you press F, you can zoom in on an object. Right now I'm already zoomed in on the camera, but if I go very far away, if I click on the camera and I press F, you'll immediately zoom in on the object. If I want to change where my camera is looking, let's say I want it to be right here for some reason. I can click on the camera and I can do Control-Shift-F, and now my camera will be facing the direction I just shifted from, and it will also be moved to the position that my scene view was at. See, the camera's right where I was, and it's now pointing down. You can actually do that with any object. It's not just the camera. It's just it's generally used with the camera, but I could say I want this cube to be where I'm at now, facing this way. I could do the same thing, and if I back out, now that cube is facing that way. Okay, let's actually get the camera onto this too. Cool. There you go. Control-Shift-F. Control-Shift-F. Okay. Let's see, what else? Up here you can see there's this gizmos button. Gizmos are like these icons, for example, this camera icon, or if you have a bounding box on the screen or something like that, it's going to be gizmo. This is also a gizmo. So if I uncheck this, you'll see it gets rid of all of that. I can also uncheck things individually, like maybe I want to get rid of the camera icon. I think it's this one. I'm not sure which icon it is. But anyways, you can uncheck things individually too. These get in the way sometimes, especially this one. And so a lot of times you just want to just uncheck it so you can see what's going on. Okay, let's see. What else? Something you probably already know or should know is that when you hit play, if I make a change to an object, it will not keep that change when I exit. Okay, so you have to make changes outside of play mode. You probably already know that one. This can happen quite often by accident, and there's a pretty simple solution to that. And a way to fix that, well, there's a couple ways to fix it. First of all, if you really need to keep whatever change you made, say I made this change, and I really don't want to lose this change, I can go to this gear up here. I can copy the component, this transform component as is, which, by the way, you can copy any component. I can stop the play mode. I can go back to the same gear, and I can paste component values, and now I've got whatever I did to that object in play mode. So that's one solution. The better solution is if you go to Edit, Preferences, and then do you see this play mode tint in general? It's under Colors. You go into Colors. And then just make it something really obvious, like I like bright red. And then now when I hit play, you'll notice it's super obvious that anything I'm changing will not be saved, right? Because I've changed the tint, so it's really obvious that we're in play mode. Be careful what you're doing. That's probably something you should just do, because the default tint is not really a strong enough tint, so a lot of people don't notice it. So that's a nice little tip. You can only select objects in scene view. I can't select this object. I can select it here, but I can't select it here. But in scene view, I can click on it to select it. Let's see what else. In game view, if you want to see what it looks like with a different resolution, you can do that here. You can also add your own resolution to be whatever you want. And that's how you can change what the view looks like, or what the resolution size will look like. Okay. Let's see what else. Up here in this layout section, there's a bunch of different pre-made layout stuff that you can use. You know, for different types of editing with Unity. You can pick which one you like the best. I generally use the default, but yeah, you can mess around with that a little bit. I'm gonna hit F to go back to the cube, and it's also in 2D. I'm gonna go back to 3D. Okay. If I right-click on a cube and I create an object, rather than going up here to create an object, it will make the new object a child of the cube. So this saves a little time instead of doing this and then making it a child of the cube. It's just a little faster. So that's a trick. Let's see. Oh, okay. If I'm selecting the cube, let me actually create another object real quick. If I'm selecting this cube and say I want to drag this cube somewhere for some reason, but I'm afraid that I'm going to lose all this information because as soon as I select this new cube, the properties all change to the new cube. So a way around that is if you hit this lock right here. I should rename this. I should rename this one. If I hit this lock on the 1 cube, now if I select the 2 cube, you'll see it didn't change the inspector properties. It's still focused on the 1 cube, even though I'm now looking at the other cube. And then I just unlock it and it'll immediately switch to the currently selected cube. That lock is really useful if you need to drag in, like for instance, this anchor override. If I wanted to drag in this, it's a little easier because sometimes you can actually just click it once and then now it's switched objects. Anyways, so the cube's very nice. Let's see, what else? Let's open up a script real quick. So if I've got a public, let's say float number, and if I put this script on an object, so since I made it public, it shows up in the editor and I can do whatever I want, change it however I want. You probably already know that, but if you didn't, that's really helpful. Something you might not know though is if I make a class number and string, and then let's say this has a public float number and a public string, I don't know, just say word. Now, if I make a public one of these, public number and string, example, if I go to Unity and I wait for it to load, oops, you'll see that it didn't actually create a public variable. even though all of the contents of this class could be public. So the way to make sure it shows up in public is you just need to make sure it's serializable, which is actually within system. So system.serializable. And this is like a I forget what it's called. I think it's a flag that you put over the class. And now if I go back to the editor, see I can now make I can basically edit this example class I just created publicly. And so the serializable is very nice. If you don't make these public though, if I make this private, or if I just don't say anything at all, it'll no longer give me that option for Word. See, it's gone. Okay. Something to remember with this though is you have to use types that are serializable. So if I use, I could even use like a Unity object, just for an example. And you'd see it show up. See, a button slot. But if I create my own other class, I can, let's say, okay, and let's say this actually has an other class. Oops. It doesn't show up because that other class isn't serializable. However, if I make this serializable, now I've got a class within a class. Okay, so these are some cool things you can do to set up your own structures and do a lot of cool things within the editor to really test a bunch of different possibilities. Okay, let's see, what else? So Unity has something called a profiler, and this is what the profiler looks like, and it's basically a great way to see what scripts or what models or whatever are taking up the most processing power. So usually I select this deep profile. You can also unselect it. It'll give you a little less information, but there, I'm just going to uncheck all these boxes so we can see just the scripts. It's hard to tell in red mode and edit mode, so there we go. So this will just be scripts. Okay, so let's see if we can player loop, target FPS. Let's see if we can find my script. Well, I guess my script actually isn't doing anything at the moment. The example script I created. So let's have it do something. So in update, we'll just say num plus equals, well, we should do this on the outside. We already have this number, so let's just do number plus equals 1. Oops. Okay. I'm not sure that'll be enough for us to see it, but let's check. Analysis profiler, let's just put the profiler right there. Okay, let's do deprofile. So you can also click on a specific spot, and you can kind of go through and look what's doing what. Let's see. anyways, this will be a lot more obvious if you're doing some crazy computational stuff. Anyways, that's the profiler. Whoops. Close. Let's see what else. There's a bunch of settings for your application that you can change in the player settings. So if you go to File, Build Settings, and then click on this Player Settings, just going to drag it over here. You can change your company name. This won't be visible to the user. They won't see the company name, but it's good for the app to have this. If you are in, or if you're working for a company, if you're doing your own thing, you should put a company name. Product name, this is something the user will see. This will be what they see when they download the application. So you can change your icons here. You can even change the cursor icon, but let's say I was working on Windows. I could change the store logo here. So there's a bunch of customization for how your app looks that you can do here. You can also change a bunch of other information. You can look through all of these. But the important ones also, you might get an error when developing for Android or iOS that says you need to change the bundle identifier. That would be this part right here, and you would just use whatever company probably, and then maybe the game name, and this would just be the bundle identifier. Let's see. What else? Oh, let's talk about script execution order. So if you're ever developing a couple different scripts and you realize that something isn't initialized quick enough, say one script you initialize an object and the other script needs to grab that object that was initialized or instantiated or whatever, created, and say your second script is trying to grab the object before it's created because your second script runs before your first script. I ran into that problem. I run into it all the time. So what you can do is you can go to the script execution order, and you can select your script, like example, and you can choose where it runs. You can see that it's changing this value. This value basically determines when it runs. And then you could do this for both of your two scripts that are having the issue, and just make sure that that the script you want to run first is above the other script, and it will run first. Okay, and then apply, whatever. Let's see. I think that is all I have. That's all the tips and tricks that I could come up with. One other thing that I've noticed with a couple people is sometimes they turn off these by accident and they don't realize, and they're wondering why they can't see anything in the scene. There's a little eyeball here. If you can't see anything in the scene, it might be because you've selected this accidentally. Okay? And then, sorry, one last tip I just thought of too. That took me a while to figure out, is that you can add multiple scenes at the same time. You don't have to just add one scene at a time. So if I create a new scene, if I right click on the scene, I can say open scene additive, and now both of these scenes are added at the same time. This is really nice when, for example, I want to drag an object from one scene into another scene. And now if I close this scene, let's see, let's save it and then close it, remove scene. Let's see, in my other scene now I have a cube, and if I go back to the other scene I only have one cube. So I've moved a cube from one scene to the other. Okay, that is all I have for you. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you want any other videos, and thanks for watching.